that's the next, I think, Achilles heel on our end. It's like, hold on a second. That data is important, but stop where you're at right now and just look around your lot. See what's going on. Again, if you're heavy in 2018s, why don't you address that issue and not worry about what the dealer's doing down the street?
Don't wait around for the up bus. Get in the driver's seat and take control of your operations. Are you ready to increase profitability, have better processes, and get proactive with your operations? Welcome to the Up Bus Podcast. Here's your hosts, Jasen Harris and Jason Rice.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jasen Harris here with Jason Rice. That is correct. You heard it. You get Jason and Jason today, a double dose of Jason. We are here to introduce to you a very new, very exciting podcast series that the two of us are going to be doing together. It is called The Up Bus. Sorry, I can't say it without a straight face. I mean, how many times, I even got yelled at, I can guarantee you, by my management team at some point. I'm just standing outside waiting for someone to come and someone to go, Jason, what are you doing? You waiting for the up bus? What's going on? But I think that our industry right now, there are a fair amount of people out there that are kind of stuck sitting there at that bus stop waiting for something to happen. And, this podcast is about not waiting, but being proactive. We want you to get in, take control, grab the steering wheel, shift this thing into gear. All right. And let's push our operations to another level. Jason, I'm excited to do this with you, man.
This is awesome. Can't wait. It's funny, over the last few years, anybody new to the business, they might not have had to worry about the up bus or even know what it is. Customers are just coming in the door.
That's totally true. I mean, think about that. I just read an article actually just recently that the average salesperson now has just a little over 2.5 years of experience in the industry. The average salesperson, which means that for the last, to your point, the last 24, almost 36 months now, they didn't have, the buses were coming in, weren't they? They were legitimately coming in, and but you know what? We've been in the business long enough to remember that you can't just sit around and wait for this thing. You got to be proactive, and you got to take control of that proverbial up bus. And that is what this whole series is about. And we're going to take it from the perspective of process, leadership, strategies, how your culture affects it. We're going to take it from many different angles. But I am so excited. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, so I'm so stoked. And I think we have the coolest logo for this. I
like it.
I like this logo. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, for our first episode, we're going to talk about the evolution of used car inventory management. All right, insights from the Up Bus. Man, used car inventory management. I got thinking about this when I said this was going to be our first topic today. And the first thing that came to my mind was the Rolodex. Right? I'm like, what's the original model? The OG inventory management model. What was kind of your first, introduction to used car inventory management? You remember?
Man, it's been a while, but no, I mean, obviously I don't know about the Rolodex, but just have an Excel spreadsheet printed up with all the vehicle information on it, sorted by age, and basically checking little boxes or crossing them off as they sold and stuff like that, and maybe update the pricing manually on that piece of sheet and keep it in your back pocket. But as a salesman, a lot of times you didn't get that copy with the pricing or cost on it or anything. You just got the vehicle information, the miles and things like that. But no, it's come a long way. I remember back in 2005 when I joined Dale Pollock at Viato. It wasn't even Viato then, it was Empower Auto. To that point, Empower Auto was scoring your inventory out on how you owned it to wholesale. And the cars that you own bad to wholesale get off faster. It was like a grade. A 50 meant you own the car bad to wholesale, so get off of it. But an 80 or 90, you owned it good to wholesale, so maybe keep it around. But then we realized at that point in time, again, you're talking 06, 05, 06, that you're not there to wholesale most of your inventory at that time. It's mostly there to retail it. So we start looking at retail data. And again, that's 15, 18 years ago or 18 years ago.
And still, even that would have been proactive for, the time. Like, I mean, I remember, working, my first sales job was in the used car side of the business, right? And I did have a very typical, used car manager. We'll call it very typical in the sense of, let's call it stereotypical
Hmm.
used car manager, smoke cigars, spent a lot of time in his office, spent a lot of time drinking coffee and doing scratch tickets. And, and I remember, the strategy for management was just the way that we had to move the lot around, right? So I remember there specifically being 7 rows of vehicles. All right. And I knew just based on where the vehicle was how much my commission on that car was going to be.
Oh yeah.
So, I
You know which cars to walk around then, huh?
well, that's how he managed it. It was pretty obvious, right? I know if I could stay away from the last 3 rows, then I was safe and I was going to make some decent money. Otherwise than that, I avoided those things like the plague. And I remember if it hit the 8th row, that's when his Rolodex came out. And he did. He legitimately had a Rolodex of wholesalers he would flip through. All right. And then start pinging them off one at a time. And but to your point, I mean, that's changed a lot. I mean, you're talking even 15 years ago of just kind of managing it, from an age perspective. What do you think from, let's call it, because I think there were some fundamental shifts, right? Let's call it like early 2000, and even early 2000s, people still didn't necessarily have their websites. It was still, some people did, some people didn't. And then I feel like by you start getting into late 2000s, 08, 09, 2010, things changed again. What did you see kind of during that time frame?
Well, I'll pull it back even a little bit further. I started
Mhm.
selling in June of 1997. And the funny thing is, I didn't like being out on the point waiting on the up bus, right? Back then, we had to be out on the point. There's probably 3 to 5 of us standing in this little spot in the lot waiting for customers to pull up. And then the first one that made that move, got the customer. And I start watching plates and stuff, waiting to see if their plate was up this month or last month, because their plate's about expired. I
That's
figured it's a
great to
deal,
hear.
that kind of stuff. But I like sitting inside, not because of the heat or anything. I just like being inside working the phone. I'm like, this is a
Mhm.
lot easier. Matter of fact, I got to the point, hey, if you see a bunch of guys out there on the lot when you pull in, just tell them they're my greeters. Just tell them you're here to see me. And so I liked working the phone so much that they, in '98, so 6 months into selling cars off the lot, waiting on the up bus, they said, hey, do you want to try this internet thing? We're gonna try internet. So back in '98 and stuff, we did have a website and we got leads faxed to us and everything like that. But the transition of that nowadays, again, is the up bus showing up that much or even ups. Typically they're
Yes.
already appointments or they already called, they've already submitted lead or information on, what kind of payment they're looking at. So, yeah, there's a huge transition. But what's weird is a couple things, that business model of following up with customers really hasn't changed over the 25 years that we're looking at now.
Mhm.
And 24, yeah, years. So, we typically follow up with leads based on the age of lead. It's a fresh lead, so we're all over it. By the time it's aged, they're 30 days old, we're pretty much given up on it. And so that strategy has really never changed, which is a shame because, again, as we're pulling back the curtain, it's like we should be managing leads a little bit differently. And, the hard part is, again, the basics haven't changed. The
No.
hard part is, we've the customers are changing a little bit because shoot, I remember in '05 I would actually post invoice on my website on new cars,
Oh no,
and that
that's
was a big deal, right?
yeah, no kidding.
um what it was, and I mean, I can explain that story and how I did that, but and why. But customers are more educated now, obviously, and now 90 to
Well,
100%
see,
of them are
that's
online
that
shopping.
transition. See that there we go. See, I think that's the big transition there, right? Because I got into the business '99. My dealership had their website by 2000, and this that beginning part of the 2000s, was kind of that fundamental change in the way that we managed our inventory because it didn't necessarily just have to do with the 8 rows that they were physically going to come onto the lot and see. Now there was no such thing. There was no such thing as kind of an organized 8 rows. Like, let me start you up here at row 1 and I'll work you
Yeah,
back to row 8. You didn't have that online, right? The cars were just there. And then people, started to just call in or fax. I still remember fax. Yes, I do
yeah,
remember fax leads, but I remember, kind of my first internet, let's call it deal, right? Like the guy, it was a 90, inquired about this 97 Ford Bronco, and I remember it because all I could think was like OJ Simpson at the time. And it was because it was white. It was that white
Yeah.
one, right? And it was like I knew this car already sold, but I had this idea that, of course he was going to come in. I knew it had just sold, an hour or so prior to him coming in, but I had this yellow Pontiac Aztec that I was sure as shit going to switch him to. But that was the type of strategy we had to come up with at that time, because you couldn't just get him to the lot and then just work your way through the 8 rows. Like, you had to have something in mind. And I feel like, having that strategy of switch vehicles kind of really started, when people were inquiring about a specific, but then you knew you had to have something you could switch them to when they got to the lot. Do you think that's about the time that model started?
Oh yeah, and I'll give you one example too. And so from '97 to about 2000, I was at a Ford store, and I sold a car to a lady in Alaska. Here I am in the
Yeah,
internet
yeah.
department in the '90s doing that, right? And so the funny part was to buy it and ship it to Alaska, it was cheaper. She had family in town. I was in St. Louis, Missouri, and I think it was Jefferson City or something. She had family in. So we got a hold of each other again, first through the internet call, and she put a deposit down on an ordered unit, and then it got there, and we sat on a little bit till she'd get a flight there. I picked her up at the airport, and I think it was a Ford Taurus wagon, if I can remember, like a maroon one or something. And I picked her up at the airport, and she was going to drive to go see her family, and then go driving home to Alaska. And that's again, that transition happened back then, and that's again why I did invoice on our website at that point in time. Customers were learning, and there's like beatthecarsalesman.com websites and stuff,
Yes.
and customers are online learning, invoice and that type of information. And so we got to the point on the internet, we would tell them, say for example, Yukons and Yukon Denali's, I think at that point in time, were 40, 50 grand. Now they're 100. But I would tell a customer, hey, we'll do 1,000 over invoice, and then my quoted price was 500 to 1,000 higher than what they seen as invoice online. And it was because we had 2% advertising fees, so
Sure.
on a 50 grand car, that's $1,000. So they thought I was lying and so forth. So like, you know what, screw it. They're going to come to my website anyways, and then they're going to leave and go see what invoice is. And then they come back to me and argue, why don't we just put invoice on our site and nip it in the bud and cut out the middleman and just say 1,000 over invoice. And it made it easier for our team too to quote prices. We'd say, hey, 500 over on Grand Prix, invoice at on Grand Ams, behind invoice on Aztecs, to your point, right? And so it made us easier to more transparent back then. But yeah, it all happened in that
It
20
all
years.
it all happened in that 2000 2010 timeframe. And then, but what I thought was, when I'm thinking of used car inventory management, I think certainly by 2010, and I'm thinking '07, '08, '09, 10, um, my used car lot fundamentally changed,
Yeah, I'd
right?
say 08, 09, 08, 09 with that
Well,
recession.
definitely with the cash
New
for
car
clunky
sales go away.
program
Yeah.
and everything that came in. But the fun thing is, I wasn't just filling my lot for my local audience as much as this, statewide and in some case national audience. At that time I got real fixated on Tacomas, and I just was fascinated with them. Was fascinated with the resale value on them and so on and so forth. And I remember going for 4 months of having 30 pre-owned Tacomas on my lot, and people inquiring from all over the country,
Yeah.
on these Tacomas, and so like the idea of what kind of evolved as far as the way we managed, we weren't just managing based on my local stuff, because I couldn't sell that many Tacomas. Dude, I was living in Southwest. I was in New Mexico. All right. It was Chevys and Fords. All right. And that was it. Nobody was buying Tacomas, so that fundamentally changed. You remember when that shifted for you as well, when it's just like all of a sudden your used car lot can now become a regional or more national lot?
Well, I guess I was blessed too, was yes and no. And what I mean by that is, I started with Dale in 2005 at
Yeah.
Empower Auto, which transitioned to V Auto, as you know, because we realized you're there to retail cars. So '06, '07, '08, '09, 2010, I was actually visiting thousands of dealerships all over the country, watching Chrysler franchises get lost, dealers losing their franchises. There had to be better used car operators. Again, with the recession and cash for clunkers, and trying to help dealers weed through that. So I was on the personal side, I wasn't at used cars, but literally stepped in thousands of dealerships, and they had to become better used car operators, because new cars, went from whatever 15 million, 13, 14, 15 million down to 10. And it took 3 or 4 years to get back to the level that we're selling at. The other tricky thing back then, we were destroying more cars than being built. So typically 12 million cars get destroyed, and only 10 or 11 new cars came into the market. So we're in a net negative in those years. So not only did you have to be a better used car operator, again, the supply demand indexes on that was a little bit trickier, and we had to change a lot of strategies, even how we appraised the car. If we go on to appraise a car trying to make $2 to $3 grand on every car, we weren't getting any, because again, what they're wholesaling for. But yet, being in a recession, you couldn't demand a ton of money for it either. So the margin compression was so tight on that stuff back then. So, that was a blessing. Again,
Well, it was a big shift. It was a blessing that was there. And then I'm kind of thinking, then you get into kind of 2010, and then for me, I think it was like from 2010 to 2020, and you mentioned it actually, is when it was all about becoming better operators. It was just, it was I think the evolution. This is actually a perfect segue kind of into our next topic, because I think one of the biggest things that evolved between 2010 and 2020, in addition to not only how we managed our inventory and what inventory we were buying, because new pieces of technology were coming out and giving us better insights as far as appraisals, and expecting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 grosses, like it was prior to that, was going away. But I think the biggest thing that evolved in that between 2010 and 2020 is the used car manager, and what was and today is a used car manager, and what were the responsibilities of it. This is, I've mentioned this before, I think the transition between plaid sport jackets and Wall Street day traders, because that's how I kind of think. I think of some of the most progressive used car managers out there right now. I would consider them more arbitrage of attention and time than just the inventory. They understand more of the nuances of how they're moving metal than just the metal itself. I think we had this old saying, don't fall in love with something, right? And that was like, because you would fall in love with a car, right? Oh, it's a cream puff, I'm going to hold on to this thing. And I think between 2010 and 2020, you saw operators evolve to not just holding on to inventory, but understanding, how to properly move inventory. And you were knee deep kind of in some of the technologies that were supporting that. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts of how you think that kind of evolved during that time frame.
Yeah, again, Dale Pollock brought in, the velocity mindset of inventory management and the Moneyball approach. Don't get tied up in the beauty of the car. Look at the numbers. Rather get base hits or based on balls or on base percentage than the home runs. And so the transition there, but that was tough. We had to go up. I had to go up against, and we as the company too had to go up against a bunch of old school car guys who knew more than the market, right? And fair to be said that you should, as an inventory manager, you should know a little bit of that, a lot of that stuff too, right? Examples, you got an 18 F-150, but it's got 18-inch wheels and the small screen and a bench seat. That's a way different truck than if it's captain's chairs, 20-inch wheels and the big touchscreen, right? So different packages. So you should have some of that insight, but 9 times out of 10, you're not beating the mark. And we always used to say the worst thing to happen to a used car manager when he makes, $3 grand on a 100-day-old car, because I think they can do that again. And so, to take people from that mindset to transition to kind of looking and understanding the data at least and appreciating what's there, to make more decisions based off of that in the market than just your gut instincts. That whole transition, it was tough. And you get to the point now, I see a lot of stores where it's just a manager doing price changes, or a used car manager's only job is to maybe appraise cars and go buy some, and then the desk managers are doing it from there. We're at the point where we even have some of our clients that have us do price changes for them, so and just trust us that we're going to make those decisions, and they'll give us red flags on particular vehicles that they don't want moved or deals that they're working. But it's not it comes down to, is it a commodity or what is it? But a lot of these, especially prior to COVID. Some of them
Yes.
are a lot of rental rockets and stuff, a refrigerator white Malibu, 18 Malibu that you got from Enterprise that every other dealer has 20 of them too. That is, it's just, you got to get off that thing as soon as possible. But I always, what we ran into a lot, and I called it the Obama strategy because he ran off of hope and change. And you run into a lot of managers that either hope they can, when they take their inventory, they can either hope that somebody comes in and pays too much money on it, or that the market's going to change and make this car position better for some reason. And that's typically not the best strategy to run with. And you got all the information to do it. From there, it's just pride and ego that you go, okay, maybe I didn't know as much as I thought I did.
Well, the fundamental thing is, I think, it became a more of a game of technology and insights, right? Like, you definitely still needed the experience, but you had access now. And I'm thinking, it started in 2010, evolved all the way through 2020. All right. And like I said, this is another good segue in kind of our third topic here, because it's the evolution of the data and technology at our fingertips that I think is really changed the way that we run, operate, build, and manage, our used car lots. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, Jason. I don't think I could run a used car lot right now without some of the tools and the dashboards and technologies and reports that I have. I mean, I'd be not saying that I couldn't. I think it just, there's too much change happening at
Yep.
such a fast rate, and for me not to know, I remember, the velocity. I remember reading the book, and just, being able to have this insights, not just what I have, but to see what other people had,
Yeah.
and that was like that was a mind shift. It was like, holy cow. Not could I just go back on my own historical data of what I've sold and what I sold it for and what my reconditioning expenses were and so on and so forth. Now I can look at everybody else's and see how many times, what's a days on lot on their side, and different parts of the country. And I mean, wow. So I guess my question is where did you see, kind of that big shift from just looking at just one dealership's data to now being able to have access to a nation's worth of data? And how do you think that affected, the way that we run, operate, and manage, our used car stores?
Well, it's about 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years in September when I stepped away and started doing lot pop stuff here. And
Mhm.
that's where, I started focusing more on what's happening at that dealer's lot, versus the market data.
Yes.
And as I transitioned through looking at, I do, because here you're hesitant on just looking at your own historical data. And what I mean by that is, I would preach it to dealers. It's like, hey, if you sell, you carry red cars, you sell red cars, we're going to tell you to buy more red cars. And you didn't know the blue cars are moving faster. Right.
Exactly.
So I get that strategy that you want to continue not to just be, put the blinders on at what's happening on your lot, open them up to see what the other dealers are able to do. But there is a profile to a dealer, and I like saying control the controllables. So I think the dealers need to understand what is happening on their lot first, and then pivot to this market data. Because here's the other challenge is within the last, again, 10 years here, but we're seeing more and more, I would say, struggle with the market data. I've had some email confirmations, from even like cars.com that 39% of the inventory listed online is inaccurate, meaning missing trim, tranny, key features and stuff. And so as we got wrapped up in all this market data, kept put our blinders on to just the market data, we start peeling back those layers and like, well, hold on a second. Here's a 2018 F-150 that's listed as a Lariat. But obviously by the photos, it's a cloth bench seat. That's not a Lariat, it's an XLT. So the price of 43 grand, is that relevant? Because it's not a Lariat. It's probably, so do I price my Lariat? And, unless I go click on every car in that competitive set to validate that that's not happening, that every Lariat is and there is a Lariat. If not, if I just look at the collective data, I think I might have to drop my true Lariat on my lot, $3 grand to match the Toyota dealer's Lariat that's marked wrong.
Of course.
The other thing that and so the other thing we're starting to see, matter of fact, we're in Kansas City market here. We're seeing a lot in this market, and it's probably legal in most, and probably legal here, is a lot of dealers are listing cars with within the comments saying, at 20 grand, let's say, or 30 grand, they got the car listed at 30 grand. And then the comments, it says price does not include 2 grand trade-in allowance or 2 grand financing with the dealership. So basically you're telling the customer it's really 22 grand. But when we look at market data, it's scraping 20 or 30 grand, whatever, they have it listed as. So that's the next, I think, Achilles heel on our end. It's like, hold on a second. That data is important, but stop where you're at right now and just look around your lot, see what's going on. Again, if you're heavy in 2018s, why don't you address that issue and not worry about what the dealer's doing down the street? Or what if you're heavy in large pickup trucks? Let's isolate those issues and figure out what trucks on your lot are causing the biggest issue. Or heaven forbid, you got a 2018, that's a large pickup truck. Now it's got two things that are going against it on your lot. Figure out which of those 18 large pickup trucks are the biggest issue, and then maybe pivot to that market data to help you make a decision. So, that's again where we're struggling a bit is I do think we need to slow down a little bit and quit getting, and then the wholesale markets ever changing.
Oh
right?
my gosh,
You
100%.
can't keep ahead of this stuff.
No.
And the car I priced at 100% retail market last week is now 103%. Not that I went in there and raised my price, but the market moved faster than I did. And again, is it relevant? Is it relevant that the Honda store just dropped their price $1,000 on their F-150 that's 80 days old versus my F-150 that's 2 days old, and I'm a Ford store, So
Well, and even if the data is correct in the first place, to your point, right, is how accurate is that trim level data?
or the price, if they're saying, hey, you got to trade, or it's $2,000 more,
So we saw this evolution where we went super heavy in really looking and understanding the market data and making decisions based off that market data. And not saying that we don't
sometimes blindly. Yes.
Yes. So, well, no, I 100%, right? I actually just had a friend make a mistake on a Mercedes E53 AMG. All right. It's if the E class is the same pulls up as an E63, there's just a 53 and a 63, but they're both pulled up as AMGs, but very, very different vehicles. You're talking a $20,000 swing in the engine itself, right? And made a big mistake. And we're talking a good $9,000 mistake. And again, because just looking on market data made a decision off something that's just, on something that he didn't necessarily, because look, it was a Honda store, not a Mercedes store.
Yeah.
Did he fundamentally know that? So, I mean, I think getting back to your point now, it's like, yes, we went through this evolution where, we went really heavy with understanding market data. And then some people were very, very successful with that. Now we're coming around, layering that market data, but really focusing on, kind of the original strategy was just working that lot, and what we can do in that lot. I know you said this many times, and I love this so much. And I think this is what kind of the next move for how we manage the lot is, we work the lot, not the lead, because I know we've talked about this a few times before, and you've told me the stat out there is that almost 60% of leads that are coming in on sold vehicles. I think that's
well, no, they're not coming in on sold vehicles. They submit a lead, and then a week or two later, that car they wanted is sold. So it's no longer available. Yeah,
but that person's still in market,
as far as we know.
We're just ignoring them.
Exactly.
So.
And let's go back a little bit. I will go backwards, go forward. We're talking about, solely looking at market data. Again, it's kind of like this new AI thing, Chat GPT and all this stuff, right? And we're all in and we're going to, we're like, man, this is awesome. It's going to change the industry. At some point in time, we're going to step back and go, hold on a second. This isn't real. This isn't reality. And this is taking my job or it's taking this away. And we're going to have to step back and then refocus on how we want to utilize it. But right now we're all in. And it's kind of, again, it's kind of like that market data. It took 3 to 5 years to get the market and the managers and the people to go, okay, this is cool. Let me start looking. And then they did 6 years of, oh man, market data, then and just making decisions off it. And it's like, all right, hold on. All right, now this is you can be hurting yourself by just looking at this and not really, again, that's where we got to step back a little bit and still have some of that used car gut instincts and their understanding of the market. And again, to your point, the cars and the packages and the differences in equipments and stuff. And that's the hardest part too nowadays is there's so many different cars, so many different features, so many different packages.
Yes.
And if you're not if you don't know Toyotas, you don't know Mercedes, you're going to or Teslas or electric cars, even worse, you're not going to understand these dynamics. So you can't just blindly just throw it out there and look at market data on a Tesla. You got to understand the battery life and all the other stuff.
Well,
so to the point there,
you need a process. It's not just one single thing, which is, well, you coined it as the lot walk, right? The things that we need to kind of look at to continue to manage our lot.
And
And
that
I
goes
love that strategy.
and that goes a lot. Well, let's go back transitioning to lead
Mm,
management. When you're looking around in 2018s or large pickup
yep.
trucks, if you're heavy in large pickup trucks and they're bleeding through on your lot, especially late models, which are happening right now, F-150s, Rams, they're sitting on dealers' lots. So if you have a problem with large pickup trucks and if you have any leads on those trucks, how often would you want to call and email those leads? Well, every day, every dealer would tell me every day, every other day. Okay, well, is your CRM set up to call a 30-day-old truck lead every day, every other day? No, it's you're only going to call fresh leads every other. We tend to manage leads based on the age of the lead, which is relevant to the customer's buying cycle. We don't know if they're 2 days out or 2 months out, right? And so, why are we managing our frequency of contact based on what our schedule? Oh, you're a hot lead, so I'm going to go after you, but after 30 days, I want to give up on you. So when you should be managing leads based on situations on your lot, because think about it by physical lot. To
Yes.
your point, talking about rearranging the lot and putting these here and there. If my large pickup trucks are sitting, guess what I'm doing with them? I'm going to move them all to the front line. I'm going to put some in the showroom. I'm going to put one on the, in the special sales row. And I'm
Mhm.
going to tell my salespeople every up you get, show them this pickup truck. Yeah, but they're here on a Miata. I don't care. They might have an uncle that wants a truck. Go show them that truck. Okay. So we do that on our physical lot, but we don't do that on virtual lot because there's never been ability to do that. Again, handling leads since the 90s. We have a CRM that's a silo that handles leads, and that's it. It doesn't talk cars. You can't go in any CRM that I know of and say, give me my large pickup truck leads or give me the leads that I have on $50,000 to $55,000 cars. And that's a shame. And that's, again, the problem that we're solving is taking that CRM data and saying, hey, you know what, let's match it up with my inventory data. I'm heavy in 2018s. Okay, well, let's isolate those leads and increase my contact ratio in 18s on any lead I have. So I'm not just, dropping my prices and costing gross, which is really the decision right now. That's the other point you're
The
talking about,
decay
the
model. Yes.
active leads on sold cars. Okay, well, let's say I do have a 40-day-old truck without any leads. The first instinct is to go look at market data and then drop my price so I can get some more leads. Maybe I'm too high priced, so the guy down the street, so let's drive price to get me some more leads. What we're not looking at is what we call those switch opportunities. If 60 to 70%, okay, let's do the raw numbers. Let's say you have 100 leads. That means 60 to 70 of them are on cars that they can't buy any longer. The truck that they're interested in sold last week, and all we're doing is automated email. Hey, you still in the market for that 18 F-150? And they're like blowing us off because they know it's gone. They went to your site 2 days ago and it's no longer there. So why not take that active lead? You know the segment, large pickup truck. You know the price point, maybe 30 grand. You know their contact information. You know their name, and that's the best lead to have. And now you, instead of just trying to sell them that 18 F-150, now you're trying to help them buy something. Hey, that 18 F-150 sold. Now what? Are you interested in other trucks? So if I got a 40, 50-day-old truck with no leads, do I drop the price or work the 10 or 15 switch leads that I have customers looking for a similar vehicle, the similar price point, try to switch them? Because again, our physical lot, we do that. We don't up a customer
we
and
do
say,
that all
oh,
the
that
time.
car sold yesterday and walk away.
Well, I mean, I remember this happening in the physical lot all the time. I would come in and get all the way through financing. Boss, $650 a month is just going to be too much for this guy. Well, and what would be the first thing he would say to me? Well, you need to go show him that car.
Yeah, $5 grand
Right?
cheaper.
$5,000 cheaper. All right. It's going to be $100 less. All right. Go show them that one. And it was just an immediate switch. But at some point in time over the last 10 years, it's like we kind of like lost that mentality. Don't you think? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because we just became more shopping and checking out model versus, I don't know. When do you think that switched and we lost that?
Well, obviously COVID, I think, did it because consumers
Yeah,
switched
100%.
themselves.
Yeah.
Cars were moving fast, so they said, okay, that one's sold, and they go hopping and buying another one themselves. But yeah, I mean, I think once a high percentage of our leads were coming in through the internet, we stopped being salespeople. We just went through a script to schedule appointments. Okay. All we did, especially dealerships with BDC, they just having a script to work that lead to schedule an appointment. Okay. And then those people that are sitting in the BDC departments typically never sold cars before. They think, as a lot of times our dealers like, here, let's hire people that never been in business before, and I'll train them how to do it my way instead of bringing in dirty laundry, right? Their old habits. So we trained them a script and said, get on the phone and just give me an appointment. Every question they ask, say, great, when can you be here? Well, I'm just wondering what my trade is. Oh, no problem. We'll figure it out. When can you be here? Right. And so we've avoided pricing. We've avoided switching. We've avoided trade-in conversations just to get the appointment. Customers sometimes will just tell you a day and time just to get off the phone so they can go to the next dealer that might give them that information. So I think that whole BDC mindset has trapped us into that. And then COVID too, if you don't want this car, I got somebody else in line right behind you, and we give up on them and just move on. Right. So I think to your point, 10 years ago is, when 8 years ago or 12, 15 years ago, when dealers are starting to do appointment setter BDC type appointments, departments, I think we lost it then. And then COVID made it worse too. The customers will just move on. They'd have to start their buying cycle all over again. And if they were treated like crap or that car sell out from underneath them, hey, I called you, I was on my way tonight. Well, I'm sorry, it sold at 2 today. They get pissed and they move on to the next dealer, and they're switching themselves. So, those sales skills are kind of just lost their way.
They've faded away. They faded away. I mean, I remember it's probably about 08, 09. I remember this guy came in and we had this used Boxer on the lot, and it was like a periwinkle blue. Pretty ugly. Got to be honest with you. Pretty ugly, right? But he did want a Boxer, and the price was definitely right. And I could tell it's just, as much as he wanted the car, he hated this color, right? And I remember said, like, just finally getting down to it. He's like, dude, I want a black one. So what did I do? I went online and I found a black one at another dealership down, like literally on the other side of the city. Drove him over there, and I'm like, "Is that the one you want?" He's like, "Yeah, all right. I'm gonna get it for you." And I brokered a deal without even being on the lot. But I mean, that was this kind of, let's call it like solution engineering mindset that I felt was like very common, for that time frame. And and when the technology came around, man, it made my life that much easier. I didn't have to drive all the way to the other side of town. I could go on a website and just click a button, tell them I wanted to buy that other dealership.
Well, not only working the lot versus the lead, you want to work the driveway also, and not just
100%.
the lead. And my example of that is just my wife. Her lease was up in June. Of course, in January, we get a letter from Volvo saying we can turn the lease in 6 months early and go to a new Volvo or certified Volvo. Of course, that then triggered my wife to start shopping. We weren't going to go back to a new Volvo. Matter of fact, we were either going to lease a car or buy a used. So we start looking at 35 to 50 grand high-end used, BMWs, Mercedes. She was all over Jaguar. She was looking at all different kinds of SUVs in that 35 to 50 grand price point. And so, after a couple of weeks of her shopping and going to dealership, she was at the Porsche store. She called me. She's like, this salesman's getting frustrated with me because I don't know what I want. I'm keep asking to drive different things. And I'm like, well, of course you're like, the season pass, you're riding everything, and she don't think you can buy. And so she's getting frustrated with you. And to the point where, again, nobody followed up with her. But yet we went ahead and bought at another dealer in February, and I had 2 car payments till June. But my point is, I was responsible for 4 deals in 12 months. So my wife, I co-signed it for my son previous to that. So in February, I buy my wife a car. We ended up turning the lease to the Volvo. But I have a daughter who's my 21, her lease on a HRV that we lease for her is coming up. And so I have a 16-year-old. I'm going to buy this HRV. Matter of fact, I get to buy it for like 16 grand, and they're retailing for 23 to 25 right now. So I'm buying that. I'm going to give it to my 16-year-old because it's a 2020 with 40 something thousand miles that my own daughter drove. And she can't get a better car for that price. So I'm going to buy that. And then I got to go find my other daughter another car. So my point is, the people that sold us the BMW, they actually sold us the car, never followed up with us still. The lady at the Porsche store that groomed my wife basically never followed up with us. And so they're missing out on 2 opportunities, because either I can go back to this Honda store, buy the car, I can call my bank and just say, hey, give me a check for 16 grand, and then call Honda and go, here you go. Or do I take it in the Honda dealership and try to buy it through them and then rewrap my daughter? You know what I'm saying? So There's 3 deals in my driveway that if you didn't work the lead and move my wife to loss and just worked her lead, you might have your foot in the door to those 2 other deals.
It's that kind of single-minded kind of approach which I think is affecting not only the way that we sell, but also the way that we are loading the lot. All right, the way that we're fulfilling it, also the way that we're managing it. We seem to kind of get blindsided and just kind of focused on these one things, so we're not thinking of the bigger, grander scheme. And I think, guys, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation, but I mean, for this episode of the Up Bus, it's that mindset of really thinking beyond just what is in front of you. And it's working the lot, it's working the customer's driveway, it's working what's coming in on trade. I mean, I can't tell you as a used car manager how many times I'd sell a car before I even had the car in my
Yeah.
possession. All
Yeah.
right, because I knew what was coming in. So
Yeah.
it's like it's that type of thing. And so when we're talking about the evolution of used car inventory management, if you were to pick maybe two of the biggest things you've seen have evolved, or maybe needs to evolve, all right, what would you say needs to evolve right now when it comes to used car inventory management, Jason, before we let everyone go?
On leads on used car inventory, quit managing the lead based on the age of the lead. Work
Mm.
every lead until they buy, die, unsubscribe. I wouldn't even mark them lost or anything. So I think, that's the other. So that's the 2 points. As an inventory manager, realize your true opportunities on that vehicle, not just the leads you have, but the leads that you could switch to this vehicle. And then as the second thing would be, as a lead manager, why weed through the 100 tasks you got to do today? 3-day phone call, 17-day email, 14-day call, 20-day email, text, whatever. All you're doing is kind of moving the lever, punching the clock. It's like factory work, and it has no rhyme or reason. The customer's buying cycle has no rhyme or reason to situations on the lot. Matter of fact, the other number that we found is we get 60 to 80%, 70 to 80% of the activity being done in that department has nothing to do with the current car sitting on their lot. If they did 120 calls and emails, 20, 30 of them have to do with cars in stock. A lot of them has to do with cars already sold. We're just following up or touching base, even though we might not have any other cars to offer them. We're calling 3-day anniversaries, or, these 3-day survey reminders, or, 1-year anniversaries, birthday calls. I mean, just a
Mhm.
lot of unnecessary work. It's good to do, but especially if I'm getting paid for scheduling appointments and selling cars, do the low-hanging fruit. Why don't you call the leads that you have cars in stock? Or why don't we call the leads that we have in stock that are on cars that we have situations or problems with, like large pickup trucks? And after I'm done with that, why don't we then call and email the customers that maybe aren't a car that's sold, but I got 3 other cars I can talk to them about. And so again, that kind of goes into, maybe getting ahead here, is the up bus. You literally,
Yes.
you don't have to sit outside waiting for these customers to pull up. You've got a database yourself of active leads out there looking for cars. And if they don't find it on your lot because it's sold and you don't care to follow up with them anymore, they're getting in that bus and they're going to go drive to another dealer, pull up, and, hey, I'm here on this car, right? So you might as well they have to buy something else. Now, forget new cars. And I say forget new cars because you can transition them over to used. But what I'm saying is, this isn't a factory. They can't just say, that car's sold, let me just order one, I'm willing to wait, right? They
Exactly.
have to buy a different color, different equipment, different miles. Something's going to be different on that vehicle. It might be a totally different vehicle anyways. They just need a truck around 30 grand. They like Fords, but they'll take a Chevy or a Dodge too. So why not open those doors and especially now when lead count's going down, activity on Shopper is going down, and it will through the end of the year here. Why not recycle the customers that already reached out to you? Again, their name, contact information, segment of vehicle, price range they're looking for. Now you get to help them buy a car instead of just trying to sell them something. So, that's the biggest thing. I think the transition needs to be moved, is to, as an inventory manager, understand the lead aspect of it. Because here's the problem. The inventory tool doesn't talk leads.
Nope.
It doesn't tell you have 4 leads that no one's followed up with 10 days. It doesn't tell you got 5 other people you might be able to switch to this car. It doesn't tell you don't have any leads, but you got 8 other people. So what do you do with no leads? You drop your price, right? And so that mind shift has to change. And then you got to take advantage of lead management too. Don't just be doing tasks to do tasks, clearing the clock. Matter of fact, I'll give 2 examples real quick.
Yep.
I'll pull dealer inventory. There's two examples, and I have multiples. But there's a 30-day-old lead on a 8 grand Mercedes-Benz. It's sold. We don't have any switch opportunity. We have nothing else to talk to this customer about, but we called them a day ago. Why? Because I was supposed to do a 30-day call. Same as a 40-day-old. It was like a Chevy Traverse or something, and it was a 7 grand vehicle that's sold, or Equinox or something, and I have no other $7,000 SUV to talk to the customer about, but yet I called them a day ago. So my question to those teams was, what'd you call them about? You don't, the car's gone and you have nothing. And in the meantime, I could take a car that's in stock, it's 50 plus days old. You have 2 leads in there that are 30 and 50 days old, and you haven't contacted them in 28 days. And so here's a car in stock we haven't called in 28 days. Plus you got 2 other vehicles to talk to them about if that car doesn't work anymore, but yet you haven't called them in 28 days. So again, the only reason we didn't follow up is I'm busy doing my 30-day and 40-day call, not call my large pickup truck leads. So again, I think those are the 2 areas. It's just like inventory management should be lead management, and lead management should be inventory management. They should go hand in hand. Those 2 departments almost should be in the same office together in my eyes now.
And you're right. And you know what? And they do need to be 2 individuals. I think there's 2 very different kind of skill sets that kind of go along with that. I think too often right now we're trying to shove everything into a singular role, and there's just too much between managing the technology, managing the process, and then of course managing the people and the process and technology. All right, that is just a lot. And we've touched a little bit on the evolution of the used car manager. We've touched a bit on how those management models have changed over the years. And we've discussed both the data and technology that's available out there. But it definitely does come down to a people, process, and technology. And there are 3 things that we have to manage, and we have to manage them effectively to be successful. And so that we're not sitting around waiting for this up bus, right? We're being proactive with it. Well, Jason, this has been great. This has been so much fun. I'm really looking forward to this entire series. If you're out there watching, listening right now, I'm excited about the series. I know Jason is. We're super excited about helping anybody and everybody in the industry to stop waiting for the up bus. All right.
It's already there.
Yes,
don't wait for it. It's already here. And the up bus is in your dealership right now.
And we're going to help you navigate that over this entire series. Jason, thanks so much, man. It's been a lot of fun. I'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Up Bus Podcast with your hosts, Jason Harris and Jason Rice. To stay up to date with all our content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.